Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth in terms of understanding how a toxic or negative individual tries to get one up on others whom they want to push down, repress, or suppress their personality, their strengths, their eventual belief or faith in themselves. In other words, how do they increase the experience of doubt, as well as embarrassment and shame in others as a manipulative tool? So, a narcissist, a psychopath, is well known to be a manipulator. So, they will play on others' emotions, particularly that of self-esteem, and encourage or create self-doubt and distrust or self-distrust in those individuals whom they are targeting or projecting, gaslighting, or brainwashing in order to get power over them. So eventually, not only do they get power over you in a particular social situation, particularly, causing that of embarrassment, which is a social emotion, which creates, self-consciousness and negative self-attention, negative self-validation, and, eventual chronically low self-esteem where you don't really value yourself, you don't believe in yourself, you don't have faith, you don't have confidence. So this ultimately, once it's allowed to perpetuate, then it creates, basically what I would call a negative early direction thinking, behaving, feeling, and deciding, and you don't really live up to your true potential, your true life purpose. So that's why a lot of people are plagued by the feeling or experience that they don't really know themselves. They feel sort of out of place. They feel sort of dehumanized. They feel less than. They feel not good enough. They feel that, they don't really feel right in their own body. They don't feel right in their own skin. They don't feel like they belong. And they don't really kind of, they can have, difficulties with kind of feeling like a woman, a man, a boy, or a girl. They just kind of feel like they're on the fence. They don't really know what their interests are. When you ask them what their passions are, what they dream about, they might answer, I really don't know. I am not sure. Or, if they do, they don't really have belief that it can be created or manifested in their life. So things really go sour within the individual. So it's very important to understand that the narcissist or the psychopath will use embarrassment, ridicule, and shame, all really sort of self or will become negative self-fulfilling prophecies, or really those social emotions to, play on you and push you down socially as well as in the relationship itself. But oftentimes I feel you can really see a difference between, them when they need you, they can be sweet as honey, they can be sweet as pie, they can be, as strong as the north wind, they can be these, great people for that momentary bit, but yet then, socially, then things will fall apart, things will crumble. And a lot of people, once they're in the midst of this, they don't really know what is going on. They're not really aware of the manipulation. They just really buy into the story or their embarrassment scheme that there is something wrong, indeed something wrong with them, because they so idolize this individual. They say look up to them, or like we've been discussing in previous videos, how they're so addicted that they'll then do anything, including self-sabotage, in order to stay with them and reduce the emotional pain that ensues from being apart from them or disappointing them or not gaining their approval. So it's like that, rather than having self-esteem, self-belief, self-trust, and that positive, congruency between validating of your senses and saying, I deserve better, I'm out of here, and being able to be decisive and execute certain behaviors, they, then, wobble and weeble, and become very shaky Are you getting shaky there? Are you getting kind of, whoa, you don't know what to do. And so you're in this uncertainty, and then, and then, you then allow, unfortunately, because you're not aware of the manipulation technique. It could be when you're younger, it can be when you're older. It doesn't really make a difference. But people are so in depth in the relationship, or this might be their family, this might be their spouse, so they are required, they're living with this person, they're, in holy matrimony, this is their blood, this is their family base, this is their foundation. So unfortunately, they can't always get perspective on things because it's so up close. It's like so right in their face that they can't really even sort out their feelings. And to understand that this negative valuation that they will then bias you on, you're always, you're always this, you're always that. Shame on you for this, shame on you for that. Know this, know that. That's ridiculous. That's ludicrous. That's, you're unbelievable, or whatever it is that they'll then get you to self-doubt. That social, oftentimes, experience of embarrassment is what they will then create. You look this, you look that, your food this, your food that. They'll look at ways to embarrass you socially, so then you'll be then suffering within, but yet when they want something in private, that's when they expect you to continue to adhere to that addiction, adhere to, that they are superior, you are inferior, and that you then need them to better yourself. You need them. In other words, you're nobody without them. This is that sort of self-perpetuating monster, I feel, that is created by these manipulative individuals, that they will use that social embarrassment in order to get power over you. But yet, when you're in private, they're going to treat you differently. So you see all this sort of, like a child with a temper tantrum, throwing themselves on the floor, and then until you give in, you're so embarrassed that you just give in to the child. So that's kind of how they get power and leverage, is through creating that. And then, you'll find that, there's then the cold blocking behavior. Very interesting is the body language of these individuals. You'll find that they're, oftentimes don't give you the eye contact. They don't give you the warm embrace. Or if they do, it's very fleeting. They might only be touching you at the fingertips. They're not really holding your hand. They're just sort of dangling a little finger here, not really, just sort of being like, you're mine, but like, I'm available for whoever else is over here, or you'll see their feet pointing away. Their feet are, they're kind of holding you, but their whole body is oriented somewhere else. There's a lot of social manipulation and cues that are important for you to be able to understand and pick up, so you can understand not only the physical experience of the manipulation, but the emotional setting up of this, and then the triggering, and then the psychological and then spiritual component that ensues with all these layers. The wonderful miracle is that we are these multi-layered, multifaceted beings, and we have the physiology, we have the psychology, we have the emotional, we have the spiritual, we have the philosophical, we have the higher senses, we have our intuition, we have our gut, and then we've got society, we've got the public, and we've got the private. So all these are like, twisted around kind of like a Rubik's Cube. And it's very difficult, to get things to like line up. I mean, you almost feel like you have to be, a neuroscientist in order to get your life right. So it's important for you to get aware of and conscious of how this embarrassment and then this low self-esteem was set up, how you were set up for disappointment, set up for defeat, set up for failure by these manipulative individuals. And no matter how good you are, you can never really win, because if you get this, then they're this. If you're this, and then they're this. You're this, and then they're that. I mean, so it just keeps the different levels just, keep at a divide, a disconnect. And so any strides you do make in going on to what I call positive orderly direction thinking, where you're really rising up to your best potential, you're really putting your foot down. You're saying, you know what? I don't need that. I don't need this emotional garbage anymore. I don't need this crap, you know. And until oftentimes people are, they're very afraid to speak these even firm words. They're, you know, so afraid of appearing less than perfect, you know, for these individuals. So they're always trying to create a self that fits them versus, you know, live in alignment with what's going on underneath your own heart, your own boundaries, your own standards. People live so detached from this that they have to return to these in order to come into your own body, so that this then becomes where you begin again, and you live again, and you dream again, and you manifest and create from this energy of self-trust, self-esteem, self-support, and deflect and defer, and then deal with the embarrassment, the shame, the manipulation, you know, the dirty looks, the disappointment that you feel that is, you know, that person's assessment of you is not what matters. Your own assessment of yourself is what matters, because if they've then got a leverage on that, then they can do anything they want with you. They can make you feel down. They can make you leave the party. They can make you leave the family. They can make you unemployed because you don't feel good enough about yourself. You don't feel safe. You're always embarrassed. You know, you're chronically low self-esteem. You're chronically low energy, low fatigue, all the different health issues that can ensue with this chronic stress. So ultimately, it becomes a stressor in your life rather than a pleasurable relationship. It can become an item of stress, but it's very difficult to be able to let this relationship go if you're counting on them for their approval, if you're counting on them for the love, if you're counting on sort of getting back your ground with them and not gaining ground with yourself. It's very important for you to kind of turn the focus around so that your strength, you're out of that self-consciousness. You know, when you're oftentimes, you'll really be able to know if you're in a people pleaser phase, if you're always self-conscious. And oftentimes the narcissist or the psychopath can be extremely self-conscious individuals, always preening, always plucking, always looking in the mirror, always adjusting their clothes. You know, and you'll find that these people have the darting looks. You know, they can never just be with you present. They're always blocking themselves. They've always got a pillow up, an arm up, a leg up, you know, a nose up. They're not ever kind of like all there. And yet they're trying to tell you that you're the crazy one. You're the problem one. You're the troublemaker. When you really analyze and really look at and observe their own behavior, perhaps their pushiness, their big ego. You know, it's the big hat, no cattle. You're getting stuck in the eye with the brim of their big old hat, yet they really are the ones with the low self-esteem. You know, they can be the loudest, they can be the pushiest, they can be the bossiest, but they can also be the one with the lowest self-esteem. You know, don't be fooled by all their loudness. Don't be fooled by all their braggadocious. Don't be fooled by all their name dropping, and don't be fooled by, you know, their brashness, their where you kind of clash. Don't be then taking the bait that it's you who's the problematic one, because oftentimes if you feel this clash, it's a clash of egos and it's a clash of self-esteem. And, you know, the feeling that this world ain't big enough for the both of us, you know, that is really, you know, it's a jousting of egos. It's a jousting of personalities. It's a personality conflict. But generally it's because one cannot live in harmony with the other. One's goodness can't live with another's goodness. There's a disconnect. So when there's a personality conflict, it's because this, you know, the person whose goodness needs to push another's down, and you're always going to want to rise up. It's the natural flow of life. You know, you can't really live too long comfortably within low self-esteem. I mean, eventually you'll become emotionally starved out. You'll become unemployed. You'll become unhealthy. Something will trigger, you know, there's something wrong here. Well, eventually you're going to have to come into your own body, come back into your own body, come back into your own being, and have that, you know, come to Jesus, come to the heart talk, come to the spirit talk with yourself that says, hey, you are number one here. You are important. It's not all this. It's not all that. It's not all them. You have to embrace yourself. And if they can't be with you in that space, that's a good signal that this person is a narcissist or a psychopath. If they can't be supportive, loving who you are, especially when you're at your finest moment, when you're living expansively, when you're living your purpose, your best self, your high self-esteem, your valuation of self, which is healthy, and they're trying to make you embarrassed and complaining or whatever, that's a true sign that the clash of the horns is because your goodness intimidates them. They're afraid of being shown up, shined out, whatever it is that they can't tolerate. They're trying to deflect it onto you. Look, see if you can understand how negative you are, how wrong you are. When it's really they're jealous, when really they're intimidated, when really you are a threat to them in their position somehow, somewhere, some way. In the social fabric of things, you are a threat. You are a contender for their place. And if things were to play out, maybe you would be equals, maybe you'd be together, maybe you'd be harmonious. But whatever it is, this person, there's a greed. The narcissist and the psychopath will always have that sort of greed component. This room ain't the big of a, for the both of us. You've got this feeling it's one or the other. And the narcissist is always, it's got to be the one. The manipulator, they have to be the one. They have to be in the driver's seat. Everybody else has to kind of go along with their scenery. And it's really interesting, especially as you mature. You can really see those people who want you still to buy into their narcissism or, still want you to see things kind of through their eyes. You can't have your own opinion, your own feeling, your own perspective. They always want you to see things their way. In fact, they're going to control the situation. They're going to manipulate you and how you feel about yourself to get whatever it is that they want. So if it's, more FaceTime in the family, well, then here comes the embarrassment. If it's, keeping you down at work from being a promotion, well, then here comes the manipulation. Here comes the embarrassment. Here comes that, that uncomfortable feeling. It's because they are trying to control the uncontrollable. They're trying to control you. It's just, you have to realize you're like a wild horse. You cannot only be, tamed according to their needs for so long. Eventually, you're going to need to honor your own instinct, your own need to sort of be free. And you can't always be harnessed. You can't be manipulated. You can't be embarrassed. It's not a healthy state. So if you feel, oftentimes people feel that this embarrassment or this shame is because there is something inherently flawed about you. That is what shame means. Dr. John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You, all of his books, Homecoming, I would highly recommend for all of the viewers. Very pivotal and influential work, especially in the field of the inner child. Wonderful man. He made a lot of series on PBS. Excuse me. Which you can watch on YouTube. There's some old, VHS. Back in the day, you could buy the VHS tapes of him. But I would highly recommend getting his books, following his work, doing his exercises. They are phenomenal. He is a real purveyor in that area and a real pioneer. So major hats off to Dr. John Bradshaw, amazing writer as well. And so it's very, and he really delves into that, the role of shame and how, especially if this is, induced into child rearing, how this can have disastrous results and effects on the child and their long-range psychosocial development, because they don't go along the path of least resistance. They don't follow their potential. They don't follow their strengths. They don't know who they are. They feel lack of industrious. They feel, oftentimes, empty, hopeless, despair, all these negative emotions as a result of this toxic parenting. The chronic embarrassers, the chronic criticizers, the chronic controllers, the chronic manipulators. Do you see how this is all lumping up into one negative boulder, emotional boulder versus clarity and industry and self-esteem, they'll make you feel wrong for having a self, wrong for having self-esteem, wrong for having an opinion, wrong for having values. Everything is about you is wrong, until the point where you have to defend and justify yourself. And then you're getting really into the fight aspect of the fight or flight mechanism. The fight, then becomes aggression, it becomes hostility, it becomes anger. It becomes all these negative emotions, and then they try to shake the finger at you and saying you're too angry all the time, you're too hostile, and they've created the very situation with which they're trying to disavow and say is wrong with you. They've, and so, parents, especially who are narcissistic, who then create this embarrassment in their child, is because they consider their child as a reflection of them. They can't, understand that their child isn't A, B, and C when they think that they should be A, B, and C. You don't understand that this child of yours is an individual, independent person, separate and distinct from you. So then you've got the trauma bond, and then this person feels like they can't ever go out and live their life because this trauma bond. They can't have their own opinions, feelings, wishes, desires, personality, family. I mean, they can't have their own style. They can't have their own car. What's wrong with your this? What's wrong with your that? What's wrong with your boyfriend? What's wrong with their this? Always something wrong. There's always something negative. So this is a true hallmark that you're dealing with toxic, problematic, social shamer, creating this chronic criticism, which becomes a chronic stress, which becomes health issues, which basically is rooted in the emotions. So it's very interesting to also note that the neurology and the physiology is very similar for emotional pain and physical pain. So they elicit and stimulate oftentimes the same areas. So physical pain, or rather emotional pain, can mimic and be very as real and significant as physical pain. So I want you to kind of think about that, and then how important it is for you to de-stress, for you to stop the embarrassment, the self-embarrassment, stop the shame you feel, begin to work on that, begin to embrace and love yourself for who you are, even if this other individual was not secure enough in themselves to love you. Love you for who you are, embrace and support yourself for who you are now, and then who you're come to be, and then believe in your finest hour, believe in your finest self, believe in your passion, believe in your purpose, believe in your self-esteem. Go and follow your dreams, follow your desires, follow your strengths, get to know yourself. Plato, know thyself. This is, that's what the recovery journal and the recovery date are all about. Getting to know and embracing yourself, developing that attachment, that healthy attachment with yourself, getting resensitized, rehumanized, taking that self out on the recovery date so you can nurture, support, and strengthen and secure those experiences, not only privately, but publicly. And then you will never, once you work on that and really, have these reoccurring each and every week, each and every month, each and every year, you'll then see you will become a far cry from the embarrassed, low self-esteem, manipulated, quaking individual that you once were while you were in the shadows of the manipulator. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Love you. Make it a beautiful day.